3 small hands reach for the phone, fingers hovering over the screen. "We have to. Dad's going to be so mad. Do it. Send." The message disappears into the digital void. 3 words. "The woman who stopped coming around 2 weeks ago." That's why it'll work. She loves him. She loves us. She just got scared. 7-year-old triplets, 1 stolen phone, a text message designed to fix what adults had broken. Daniel Reed was a good father, patient, kind, the kind of man who braided hair even when it looked terrible, who knew all the words to princess songs, who'd rebuilt his entire life for around 3 daughters after his wife died. Victoria Ashford was a fortress. Built her company from nothing. Fired executives without blinking. The kind of woman who wore powers, suits, and made million-dollar decisions before breakfast, but put her in a room with 3 little girls who asked impossible questions and refused to see her as anything but human. And the fortress had cracks. They'd been something for 6 months, something beautiful and terrifying and real until she'd walked away, said it was too complicated, too messy, too much. The triplets didn't believe her, and they were about to prove that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is press send. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. 6 months earlier, Daniel Reed was just trying to survive another Tuesday. Architect, single father, professional juggler of impossible schedules. The triplets, Lily, Emma, and Sophie, were in the conference room of Morrison and Hayes Architecture, supposedly doing homework, actually building a Ford out of presentation boards. "Girls," his voice carried the specific exhaustion of a man who had been outnumbered 3-1 for 7 years. "We talked about this. We're being creative," Sophie announced. The unofficial leader always had been, even in the womb, born first by exactly 3 minutes and never let her sisters forget it. "Daddy needs those boards for the client meeting." "The client can wait," Emma said, completely serious. "This is structural engineering." Daniel rubbed his temples. The Meridian Industries presentation was in 20 minutes, the biggest pitch of his career, and his daughters had commandeered half his materials. 5 minutes, he negotiated. Then 4 comes down, homework comes out, and everyone sits quietly. "Define quietly," Lily asked because she was 7 and believed all terms should be precisely defined. That's when Victoria Ashford walked in. Not into the conference room, into his life, though neither of them knew it yet. She was early, 30 minutes early, the kind of person who showed up early to show up early. CEO of Meridian Industries at 28, built a company from a failing startup to a tech powerhouse in 6 years. Forbes had called her the Ice Queen of Innovation. Daniel turned, words of apology already forming, stopped. She was younger than he'd expected, blonde hair pulled back severely, a gray suit that probably cost more than his car, and an expression that suggested she'd perfected the art of being unimpressed. Mr. agreed. Not a question, a statement. "Miss Ashford," he scrambled to his feet. "You're early. We weren't expecting." Her eyes swept the room, landed on the fort, the 3 identical faces peeking out from behind presentation boards. "Are those my project materials? We're structural engineers," Sophie announced before Daniel could intervene. "We're testing load-bearing capacity." Victoria's expression didn't change. "And your findings?" Emma crawled out of the fort completely unfazed by the staring at her. "Cardboard is surprisingly strong if you use triangulation. Also, your logo is pretty." "Emma," Daniel warned. But Victoria had tilted her head, the slightest shift in her armor. Triangulation. Interesting choice. Most 7-year-olds would just stack. "We're not most 7-year-olds, Lily informed her. "We're triplets. That makes us statistically rare. 1 in every 250 births." Victoria almost smiled. "Almost statistically rare. I remember that. She looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. Your daughters? My daughters, he confirmed. I'm sorry. The babysitter canned, and don't apologize. Her voice cut clean. Children should understand structural engineering. More executives should. She pulled out her phone, typed something. I'm moving our meeting to 4:00 p.m. That gives you time to finish their homework and rebuild my presentation. Use the triangulation concept. It's good. She was halfway to the door when Sophie called out. Miss Ashford. Victoria turned. You look sad. The room froze. Daniel's heart stopped. You didn't tell a she looked sad. You didn't tell Victoria Ashford anything except, yes, ma'am. And right away, but Sophie had never learned those rules. And Victoria had stopped walking. I look sad. Her voice was careful. Sophie continued, oblivious to Daniel's panic. And your mouth, it's not smiling, but it's not really frowning either. It's just flat, like when Daddy's sad, but pretending he's not. Victoria's mask slipped just for a second, just long enough for Daniel to see something raw underneath. I see. She looked at Sophie, at Emma, at Lily. 3 7-year-olds who'd somehow identified what everyone else missed. You are very observant. Thank you, Sophie said politely. Do you want to see our fort? And that's where it started, with a CEO who should have left, who should have fired Daniel for unprofessionalism, who instead walked over to a cardboard fort and let 3 little girls show her their triangulation theory. Daniel watched, frozen, as Victoria Ashford knelt down in her 1000 suit and examined structural support made from presentation boards and masking tape. Listen, as Sophie explained, low distribution as Emma demonstrated stress points, as Lily provided statistical analysis of cardboard's tensile strength. Remarkable, Victoria said when they finished. She stood, looked at Daniel. The mask was back, but there were hairline fractures. 4:00 p.m. Mr. Reed, bring the triangulation concept. And she paused. Your daughters are brilliant. Don't apologize for them. She left. The girls immediately collapsed into giggles. Daniel sagged against the table. He had no idea he just met the woman who would break him open and put him back together. No idea that in 6 months she'd be sitting at their dinner table laughing at Sophie's jokes, teaching Emma about architecture, helping Lily with statistics homework. No idea that 3 little girls would see through her armor before he ever could, and no idea that walking away from her would be the hardest thing she'd ever do. The 4:00 p.m. meeting went perfectly. Daniel's design incorporated the triangulation concept. Victoria approved everything without changes, shook his hand, left professional, distant, exactly what you'd expect. 2 days later, she came back. Mr. Reed, she stood in his office doorway. Same suit, same severe hair, same everything except her voice had a microscopic crack. Your daughter's observation was correct. He looked up from his drafting table. Ma'am, I do look sad. She said it, clinically, like reporting quarterly earnings. I haven't slept properly in 4 months. My assistant staged an intervention last week. Apparently, I'm emotionally unavailable and working myself to death. Daniel had no idea what to say. CEOs didn't share this. Close the door. I'm here because your daughter saw something my entire board, my executive team, and my therapist missed. Or maybe they saw it and didn't care enough to say it out loud. She sat down, uninvited, unexpected. I'd like to hire you for a private project. My home. It needs renovation. But more than that. She stopped, started again. I'd like your daughters to consult. My daughters on whether the design makes someone look less sad. Daniel stared. You want to hire 7-year-olds as emotional consultants. I want, Victoria said carefully, to understand how 3 children could see through me in 30 seconds when I've spent 6 years perfecting being invisible. And that's how it started. Really started with a CEO who was drowning and didn't know it. A single father who recognized the look because he'd worn it for 4 years. And 3 little girls who believed everyone deserved to not look sad. The renovation project became weekly meetings. Weekly meetings became dinners. Dinners became weekends. Victoria taught the girls about business. They taught her about feelings. Daniel found himself watching her transform. Slowly. So slowly. The way ice melts in spring, not all at once, in trickles. First, she smiled. A real smile, not the professional one. When Emma made a joke about structural integrity applying to feelings. Then she laughed. Actually laughed head back unguarded when Sophie accidentally called her Auntie Victoria, and then insisted it was scientifically accurate because they'd known each other for 8 weeks and that qualified as family territory. Then she cried, sitting at their dinner table on a random Thursday, watching Daniel braid Lily's hair while Emma and Sophie argued about whether unicorns could theoretically exist if you apply genetic engineering. "I didn't know," she whispered. Daniel looked up. "Know what?" "That life could feel like this." Her voice broke. Warm, easy, like I'm not performing every second. That night, after the girls went to bed, they sat on his porch. Daniel handed her tea. She took it with shaking hands. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Do what?" "Be human. Be here. Be anything except the CEO." She looked at him. "I built everything. The company, the reputation, the walls, and your daughters walked up to those walls and just climbed over them like they weren't even there. They're good at that," Daniel said softly. "After my wife died, I built walls too. Made it 4 years before they staged an intervention. Sophie told me I was emotionally constipated." Victoria laughed through tears. Smart kid, terrifying kid. They sat in silence, comfortable, real Daniel. His name on her lips felt different. "I'm falling for you, for them, for this. And it terrifies me more than anything in my life ever has." He should have been careful, should have thought about complications, about the project, about professional boundaries. Instead, he reached over and took a hand. "Good. I'm terrified too. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. For months in, they were inseparable. Victoria came over 3 nights a week, sometimes 4. The girls adored her. She taught them about coding, about business strategy, about how to negotiate for extra dessert using market analysis. "You're teaching them capitalism," Daniel observed, watching Sophie present a PowerPoint on why bedtime should be extended 30 minutes. "I'm teaching them persuasion," Victoria corrected. "Capitalism is just applied persuasion." Sophie's presentation had charts, graphs, a cost-benefit analysis of sleep versus morning productivity. "She's 7, Daniel repeated. "She's brilliant." Victoria was glowing. "Deny her request and you're stifling innovation." He denied the request. Sophie accepted defeat gracefully. Emma whispered to Lily, "Next time we target Dad's emotional vulnerability." "I heard that," Daniel called. Victoria was laughing. The real laugh. The one that made her eyes crinkle and her whole face light up. The one he'd fallen completely in love with. That night, after bedtime stories and toothbrushing negotiations and the usual chaos, Victoria stayed. They sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "I didn't think I could have this," she said quietly. "Have what?" "A family, a home, a place where I'm not the CEO, where I'm just Victoria, the person underneath all the armor." He kissed the top of her head. You've always been just Victoria. You just needed people who refused to see anything else." She turned, looked at him. "I love you." First time she'd said it. First time either of them had. "I love you too." Upstairs, 3 little girls were definitely not asleep. Definitely not peeking through the staircase railings. Definitely not high-fiving each other. "Operation Get Dad a Girlfriend is complete," Sophie whispered. "Now we work on Operation Forever," Emma added. Lily nodded. Sagely. "We'll need a more comprehensive strategy." They had no idea how right they were and how soon they'd need it. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. Victoria's board called an emergency meeting. Someone had leaked photos. Victoria at Daniel's house with the girls looking happy. Human. The board was panicking. "This looks bad," her CFO said. "You're the youngest CEO in the industry, female. You've built a reputation on being untouchable, and now you're what? Playing house with an architect and his kids." "I'm living," Victoria snapped. "I'm not playing anything. You're compromising the company image. The company image is me burning out by 35 and dying alone." Her voice was ice. "I'm choosing different." But the board didn't care about different. They cared about stock prices, investor confidence, the narrative they'd built. "You need to choose," the chairman said, "the company or the distraction." Victoria went still. "The distraction has a name. He has 3 daughters. They're not distractions." There she stopped because she couldn't say "my family" without crying. Couldn't admit that in 4 months she'd built something more important than everything she'd spent 6 years creating. "We're not asking you to choose forever," the CFO said, softening slightly, "just until the merger finalizes. 6 months? Step back, focus, then do whatever you want. 6 months? It might as well have been forever." But Victoria looked at the numbers, at the company she'd built, at the 500 employees depending on her, at the shareholders, the responsibility she'd built this. She couldn't let it crumble because she'd fallen in love. Could she? That night, she went to Daniel's house. The girls were asleep. She sat across from him. Couldn't meet his eyes. "The board wants me to step back from this, from us, until the merger is done." Daniel went very still. "What do you want?" "I want." Her voice broke. "I want to stay. I want to be here. I want to braid hair badly and listen to Sophie's presentations and teach Emma coding and help Lily with statistics. I want you. But, I have 500 employees. I have a company I've bled for. And if I let it fail because I chose personal happiness over professional responsibility, what does that make me?" "Human," Daniel said quietly. "It makes you human. I can't afford to be human right now." She was crying. Actually crying. "I can't afford to be anything except the CEO." He reached for her hand. She pulled away. "Victoria, I'm sorry." She stood. "I'm so sorry, but I have to do this. I have to see the merger through. And I can't do that if I am. If you're what? Happy present. Actually living. If I'm distracted, the word hung between them. Ugly. Wrong. We're not a distraction," Daniel said, and his voice was raw. "We're real. What we have is real." "I know." She was at the door. "That's what makes this so hard." She left, drove home through streets that felt emptier than they'd ever been. The city lights blurred. She told herself it was rain on the windshield. It wasn't. When she got to her penthouse, she stood in the doorway for a long moment. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Spotless, perfect, cold. She'd lived here for 4 years, had never noticed how it felt like a hotel room instead of a home. No pictures on the walls, no clutter on the counters, no life, just expensive furniture and a view she never looked at. Victoria walked to the window, looked out at the city below. All those lights, all those people living their lives, building their families, being human. And here she was, 28 years old, CEO of a tech powerhouse, Forbes Ice Queen of Innovation, completely alone. She thought about Daniel's house, the chaos, the noise, Sophie's presentations scattered across the dining table, Emma's coding projects taped to the fridge, Lily's research notebooks stacked on the couch, the way it smelled like dinner and home, the way it felt like living instead of existing. She'd had that for 4 months. She'd had that, and she'd walked away for what? For a merger that would close whether she was happy or not. For a board that saw her as an asset, not a person. For a company she'd built at the cost of everything else. Victoria sat on her designer couch, put her head in her hands, and cried. Really cried the way she hadn't let herself cry in years. Because grief was weakness. Vulnerability was liability. Emotion was something you controlled, not something you felt. Except she couldn't control this. Couldn't compartmentalize Daniel's face when she'd said distraction. Couldn't forget the way the girls had looked at her. Confused, hurt. Couldn't feel the way her heart had broken when she'd walked out that door. The phone on her coffee table buzz. Work, always work. Another email about the merger. Another report that needed reviewing. Another meeting that required her presence. She built this empire of obligations and responsibilities and endless demands on her time, and it was suffocating her. Victoria picked up her phone, stared at Daniel's contact. Her finger hovered over his name. She could call, could take it back, could choose different. But the board's words echoed in her head. The company or the distraction, as if love was something you could schedule around, as if family was negotiable, as if being human was optional. She put the phone down, went to bed, didn't sleep. The next morning, the girls asked where Victoria was. Daniel didn't know what to say. She's busy with work. Bug. Is she coming back? Sophie asked. He didn't answer. 3 days later, Victoria sent an email. Professional distant. The renovation project was complete. Thank you for your services. Payment would be processed. She didn't come to dinner that week or the next. Daniel threw himself into work. The girls got quiet, stopped asking. 2 weeks of silence, 2 weeks that felt like years. Daniel threw himself into work. New projects, new clients, anything to avoid thinking about the empty chair at his dinner table. The girls got quiet, stopped asking, stopped talking about Victoria like she'd never existed, like loving someone and losing them was just something that happened. Sophie stopped doing her PowerPoint presentations. Emma abandoned her coding projects. Lily's research notebooks sat untouched. They were grieving again, and Daniel couldn't fix it. Couldn't explain why grown-ups made stupid choices. Couldn't tell them that sometimes love isn't enough when fear is louder. On day 13, he found Sophie crying in the bathroom. I thought she loved us, Sophie whispered. She does, Daniel said, even though the words felt hollow. Then why did she leave? How do you explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes people choose safety over joy? That sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves become the prisons we can't escape? She's scared, Daniel said finally. Of what? Of feeling this much. Of needing us. Of being human instead of perfect. Sophie wiped her eyes, looked at him with those 2 old eyes that had already lost one parent and refused to lose another. That's stupid. Yeah, Daniel agreed. It really is. Meanwhile, across the city, Victoria was slowly coming apart. The merger was progressing. The numbers looked good. The board was pleased. And she was dying inside. She threw herself into work. 1 8-hour days. Meetings that bled into more meetings. Emails at midnight, conference calls at dawn. The kind of schedule that left no room for thinking, for feeling, for remembering what she'd given up. But late at night, alone in her penthouse, the walls closed in. She'd check her phone, see the last message from Sophie, a meme about structural engineering that Victoria had never responded to. See the unanswered text from Emma asking if she wanted to see her new app. See Lily's shared calendar invite for family dinner number 47 that Victoria had declined. She built walls, thick ones, the kind she'd spent 4 months tearing down. And in 2 weeks, she'd rebuilt them higher than ever. Except they didn't feel like protection anymore. They felt like isolation. On day 14, Victoria's assistant found her crying in her office. Miss Ashford, concern, confusion. The CEO didn't cry. Never. I made a mistake, Victoria whispered. Her assistant, a woman named Marie, who'd worked for Victoria for 3 years, sat down uninvited. The architect. Victoria looked up. You know about that? Everyone knows. The boy tried to keep it quiet. But people talk. Marie leaned forward. Can I say something honest? Victoria nodded. You've been different these past 6 months. Happier, more human. You laughed in meetings. You left at reasonable hours. You talked about things that weren't work. Marie paused. And then 2 weeks ago, you went back to being the Ice Queen. And honestly, it's worse than before because now we know you're capable of being warm and you're choosing not to be. Victoria stared at her assistant. The board said, The board cares about stock prices. You should care about your life. Marie stood. I've worked for you for 3 years. This is the first time I've seen you cry. And it's not because you're happy. It's because you're heartbroken. So maybe ask yourself, what's the point of building an empire if you're miserable? Victoria sat in her office, looked at the walls covered in awards and achievements, the Forbes cover, the industry recognition, the quarterly reports, all of it, everything she'd bled for, and none of it mattered. None of it felt like those Thursday dinners. None of it felt like Sophie's presentations, or Emma's jokes, or Lily's statistical analysis. None of it felt like Daniel's hand in hers. None of it felt like home. That night, Victoria drove past Daniel's house. Didn't stop, just drove past. Slowly, the lights were on. She could see shadows moving inside her family, except they weren't hers anymore. She'd given them up. For what? For professional success that felt empty without people to share it with. For reputation that meant nothing when she was alone. For safety that felt more like suffocation. Victoria pulled over, sat in her car, cried until she couldn't anymore. The next day, Lily saw her, walked right up to Victoria's car, stopped at a red light, looked through the window. Their eyes met. Lily's face was carefully blank, but her eyes were sad. So sad. The light turned green. Victoria didn't move. Lily turned and walked away. And Victoria broke completely, irreparably, because of 7-year-old Lily. Sweet, logical, brilliant Lily couldn't even smile at her anymore. What had she done? What had she become? That night, Victoria called her therapist. I need an emergency session. What happened? I chose wrong. I chose everything wrong, and I don't know how to fix it. 2 weeks of silence, 2 weeks of Daniel going through the motions, making breakfast, doing homework, bedtime stories. But his smile was gone. His laugh was gone. The girls saw it. Of course, they saw it. They were 7 years old and brilliant and observant, and they'd already lost one parent. They refused to watch their father lose himself again. We have to fix this, Sophie announced during a secret triplet meeting in the bathroom, the only room with a lock. Dad's sad, Emma agreed. Like after Mom died, sad. Victoria is sad too, Lily added. I saw her in her car last week. She was crying. They looked at each other. 3 identical faces, 3 identical expressions of determination. Operation. Give Dad a smile back, Sophie declared. 7 years old with research methodology. We need to make them talk. Adults are bad at talking. They need intervention. Dad won't call her. Sophie said he's too proud. And Victoria won't call him, Emma added. Lily finished. They looked at Dad's phone charging on the counter, within reach unattended. We could get in so much trouble, Emma whispered. Or, Sophie countered, we could save Dad. Lily nodded. Cost-benefit analysis suggests the risk is worth the potential outcome. They were 7. They were brilliant, and they were about to change everything. That evening, while Dad was in the shower, they made their move. Sophie grabbed the phone. Emma kept watch. Lily pulled up Victoria's contact. What do we write? Emma asked. Something true? Sophie decided. Her fingers moved across the screen. 3 words. Simple, honest, devastating. We miss you. She showed her sisters. They nodded. She pressed send. The message disappeared. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then 3 dots appeared. Victoria was typing. The girls held their breath. The response came through. Where are you? Sophie's hand shook as she typed back home. Same as always. Another pause. Then I'm coming. The girls stared at each other. It worked. It actually worked. They heard the shower turn off. Put it back, Lily hissed. Sophie placed the phone exactly where it had been. They scattered. By the time Daniel came downstairs, towel drying his hair, 3 angels were doing homework at the kitchen table, suspiciously angelic. You 3 are being very quiet, he observed. We're focused, Sophie said without looking up. Education is important, Emma added. Statistical analysis suggests quiet study time improves retention, Lily finished. He didn't believe them for a second, but before he could investigate, his phone buzzed. He picked it up, saw the message thread, saw what had been sent. His face went white. Girls, his voice had that tone, the serious tone, the we need to talk right now tone. 3 guilty faces looked up. Did you take my phone? They nodded. No point lying. Sophie Reed had many talents. Deception wasn't one of them. Did you text Victoria? Another noted. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He should be angry, should lecture about privacy and boundaries, and asking before touching other people's things. But all he could think was, she'd responded. Victoria had responded, and she was coming. The doorbell rang. All 4 of them jumped. The girls looked at their father. He looked back. You 3, he said slowly, are in so much trouble. But you love her, Sophie blurted, and she loves you. You're just being stupid grown-ups about it. Sophie. The doorbell rang again. Daniel ran a hand through his damp hair. He was in sweatpants, an old t-shirt. Not prepared for this, whatever this was. Hide, he told the girls. What? Why? Because I need to talk to her alone about, he gestured vaguely, everything. They scrambled behind the couch under the stairs. Emma grabbed Lily's hand. Sophie grabbed Emma's. They watched as their father walked to the door, took a breath, opened it. Victoria Ashford stood on their doorstep, still in the golden dress from whatever event she'd been at. Hair slightly messy, makeup smudged. She'd been crying. The girls, Daniel started. His voice came out rough. They took my phone. I didn't know I know. She cut him off. I know it was them. Victoria, I'm sorry. They shouldn't have. Stop. She stepped forward. They were inches apart. The text, what did it say? Her voice was shaking, desperate. Show me, please. Daniel pulled out his phone, held it up, 3 words on the screen. "We miss you." Victoria's breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled over. "Say it again," she whispered. Her voice broke. Raw, vulnerable. Everything she'd never let herself be. "Please say it again." Daniel looked at her. This powerful CEO, this woman who fired executives and made million-dollar decisions, standing on his doorstep crying, begging to hear 3 simple words. "We miss you," he said softly. "We miss you, Victoria." She crumbled right there. "All the walls, all the armor gone. I've been miserable because I don't care about the merger anymore. They wanted 6 months. I couldn't even make it 2 weeks. I've spent 2 weeks telling myself it was worth it, that I made the right choice, that the company was more important than this." She gestured between them, and I was lying. I've been lying for 2 weeks to the board, to myself, to everyone except her voice broke. "Except when I'm alone, and then I'm just honest about how much I miss you. Miss them. Miss this." Daniel's hands were shaking. "The board can deal with it. I'm the CEO. I built the company. And if they can't accept that I'm human, that I have a life outside those walls, then maybe I built the wrong thing." She took a breath. "I choose you. I choose them. I choose this messy, complicated, beautiful thing we have. If you'll still have me." Behind the couch, 3 little girls were crying. Happy crying. Sophie squeezed Emma's hand. Emma squeezed Lily's. They'd done it. Operation Get Dad's Smile Back was a success. Daniel reached out, cupped Victoria's face. "Say it again." Her eyes widened. "What?" His voice was soft. "Certain. Sure. Say you choose us. Say it again. Say it like you mean it." Victoria's breathed. "I choose you. I choose them. I choose us every day, every moment, forever." He pulled her close, held her right there on the doorstep. She wrapped her arms around him and finally let herself cry. Really cry. All the weeks of pretending, all the walls she'd rebuilt. They crumbled. When they pulled apart, Victoria was laughing and crying at the same time. "Your daughters are geniuses. My daughters are in so much trouble," Daniel corrected. But he was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in 2 weeks. "Girls," he called, "I know you're not hiding. You can come out." 3 sheepish faces appeared. Sophie from behind the couch, Emma from under the stairs, Lily from behind the hallway table. "Are we in trouble?" Emma asked in a small voice. Victoria knelt down. "Eye level. You're not in trouble." "You're?" Her voice caught. "You're the reason I'm here. The reason I remembered what matters. The reason I came back." "So, you're staying?" Sophie asked hopefully. "If your dad will let me." She looked up at Daniel. "If you'll all let me." "Statistical analysis suggests yes," Lily said seriously. Victoria laughed, pulled all 3 of them into a hug. Daniel watched. His girls, his person, his family complete. "Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel." 6 months later, Victoria moved in. Not immediately. Dinners, weekends, gradually merging their lives until it felt natural, inevitable. The board adjusted, had to because Victoria was happier, more focused, more human, and the company thrived. Turned out a CEO who actually lived her life, made better decisions than one who was slowly dying inside. The girls flourished. Sophie started a business consulting firm. Age 8 advised other kids on negotiating allowances. Emma learned to code and built an app that tracked mood patterns and suggest interventions. Used it to monitor Dad and Victoria's happiness levels. Lily published a paper on family dynamics and blended households, 2nd grade. It got cited in an actual psychology journal. "Our children are terrifying," Daniel observed one evening. Victoria was helping with homework. He was making dinner. Domestic, normal, perfect. Our children are extraordinary, Victoria corrected. There's a difference. Our children are eavesdropping. Sophie called from the other room. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. That night, after bedtime stories and teeth brushing and the usual chaos, Daniel and Victoria sat on the porch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, the kind of comfortable silence that only comes when you fought for something and won. "You know what I was thinking about today?" Victoria said softly. Daniel waited. She had that tone. The one that meant something important was coming. "The first time I came to your house, not for work, when the girls invited me for dinner. Do you remember? The interrogation dinner?" Daniel smiled. Hard to forget. It had been 8 weeks into the renovation project. The girls had been relentless. Victoria had finally said yes, shown up in jeans instead of a power suit. No armor, just her. "They asked me why I didn't have kids," Victoria continued. Her voice was quiet, reflective, and I told him the truth, that I'd spent 10 years building a company and convinced myself I didn't have time for anything else. I remember Emma said I could share theirs, that they had extras. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. Extra love. That's what Lily called it. Said the mom taught them that love multiplies. It doesn't divide. Daniel pulled her closer. They meant it. They still do. I know. She was quiet for a moment. That night changed everything for me. I went home to my empty apartment and realized I'd built this incredible company, this reputation, this whole life, and none of it mattered. None of it made me feel the way 3 7-year-olds and their father made me feel in one evening. "What did we make you feel?" "Human," she whispered. Seemed like I mattered not because of what I'd accomplished, but because of who I was underneath it all. The person I had forgotten existed. She turned to look at him. I was terrified. For weeks after that, I'd come to dinner and feel my walls cracking, feel myself falling, and I kept showing up anyway because I couldn't stay away. "I'm glad you couldn't," Daniel said softly. "Even when it got hard, even when I walked away, even when I chose wrong." She paused. "I'm glad I couldn't stay away. Me, too." They sat in silence, the porch light casting warm shadows, the sound of crickets in the distance. Inside, 3 little girls who definitely should have been asleep. Being adults who actually talk about their feelings. Statistical analysis suggests this is rare. Sophie nodded. "We trained them well." "We didn't train them." Lily corrected. "We intervened." "There's a methodological difference." "Whatever." "It worked." Emma grinned. "Operation Forever is still operational." They high-fived. Quiet, pleased with themselves. Downstairs, Victoria continued. "Daniel, yeah, I need to tell you something. Something I've been thinking about for a while now." He heard the seriousness in her tone, turned to face her properly. "What is it?" "The board. They've been pushing me to expand, open a West Coast office. It would mean travel." She took a breath. "A month ago, I would have said yes without thinking. Built it into the plan, made it work. And now I can't stop thinking about missing bedtime stories, missing Sophie's presentations, missing Emma's coding projects, missing Lily's research papers, missing," her voice broke, "missing dinner with you, missing this." She gestured to the space between them. "Missing life." Daniel was very still. "What did you tell them?" I said, "No." Her voice was firm, clear. "I told them to find someone else, that I consult remotely if needed. But I'm not doing 3 weeks a month away. I'm not choosing the company over my family again. Victoria, I know what you're going to say, that I shouldn't make that choice because of you, because of us, but that's not why I did it." She took his hand. I did it because I finally understand what the girls have been trying to teach me since the day I met them. That success isn't measured in quarterly earnings or Forbes articles. It's measured in moments like this, in being present, in showing up. Daniel didn't trust himself to speak. "Say something," Victoria whispered. "I'm proud of you," he managed. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, but it was right. She smiled. Besides, the girls would have staged another intervention if I had said yes. He probably sent the board a PowerPoint on work-life balance. He laughed with charts and statistical analysis. Obviously, she leaned her head back on his shoulder. "This is enough. You know this right here." "More than enough." "I know." They sat together. Present here, alive upstairs. 3 little girls finally started falling asleep. Mission accomplished. Family intact. Love multiplied, and downstairs, 2 people who'd been lost and found sad and comfortable silence, not needing to say anything, just being together. "I almost lost this," Victoria said quietly after a while. "I almost chose wrong, but you didn't because 3 7-year-olds were braver than I was." She smiled. They sent a text message and changed everything. Daniel's voice was warm, amused. "Change everything." "I love you," Victoria whispered. "I love you, too." More silence. The comfortable kind. The kind that only exists when you've fought for something and won. When you've chosen each other despite fear, despite walls, despite everything. "Daniel." "Yeah, thank you. For what?" "For seeing me. For letting me in. For giving me a family when I didn't even know I needed one. For," she stopped, started again. "For making me believe I deserved this." He kissed the top of her head. "You've always deserved this. You just needed people who refused to let you hide." "Your daughters are relentless," she said fondly. "Terrifying," he agreed. "Absolutely terrifying. And perfect. And perfect." They stayed like that under the porch light in the warmth of home, in the safety of chosen family. Inside, 3 little girls were finally actually asleep, exhausted from eavesdropping content in the knowledge that their family was whole. That operation forever had succeeded beyond their projections. That love, when given a chance, really does multiply. And it had all started with 3 words. A text message and the courage to press send, because sometimes that's all it takes. 3 words, 1 brave moment, and a willingness to choose love over fear. Even when it's terrifying, even when it's messy, even when it's complicated, especially then. Victoria Ashford looked at Daniel Reed and knew this was home. Not the penthouse apartment, not the corner office. Here with this man who taught her to be human. With these 3 brilliant, chaotic, beautiful girls who'd refused to let her hide. This was home, and she'd fight for it every single day. The end. But really, just the beginning. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember. The best love stories start with courage. The strongest foundations are built slowly, and sometimes the people meant to change our lives arrive exactly when we need them. Not as romance, but as connection, as understanding, as chosen family. Subscribe and be part of our Heart Echo Stories family, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that light always finds its way back. And if this moment moved you, share it. Because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do.